Hey everybody, Jeff here from Ignite Music Project, and today I wanted to launch a brand new video series called How To. The How To video series is going to focus on all aspects of making music in your home or bedroom studio. And today we are going to start with an amazing platform called GarageBand. GarageBand is a free piece of software that comes with every Macintosh computer, and it is incredibly powerful with effects, plugins, virtual instruments, ways to edit and mix your songs. And I'm going to help you know everything you need to do from beginning to end on how to release a great sounding song all by using GarageBand. So without any further ado, let's get started with How To GarageBand. Okay, welcome to my How To GarageBand video series, and today it's all about getting started in GarageBand. Now, a quick preface before we get going. I did a video last week about the 5 essential home recording studio components, and I strongly suggest that you go back and take a look at that video before moving on in this series. I talk about the 5 things that you are going to need in order to build an awesome home recording studio. We're going to talk about those today, so I want you to be prepared and be caught up so that you understand and you're not lost as we get going. So go take a look at that video. I'm going to put a link to it in this video's description, and there should be a title card that pops up on the screen now that you can click and go watch that video. So moving forward, I'll assume that you've seen it and that you understand the components and the hardware that you're going to need, and let's get going. So when you first click on GarageBand and open up the program, you are greeted with this initial screen. Now this screen gives you access to a bunch of different project templates and ways that you can get started quickly in whatever kind of music you're wanting to create. You can open up an empty project. You can open up a keyboard collection, a guitar amp collection. You can open up a microphone or a vocal project. You can do a ringtone, hip hop, electronic music, or a singer-songwriter project. And these quick start options just preload and set up a session already with different keyboards and guitar amps and things and tracks in place, and it can help you hit the ground running. But we'll go over those a little bit more in depth. But today we're going to open up an empty project. But before we do, I want to have you take a look down here on the details section. If you click on the little triangle next to details, it's going to open up a few more options that will apply to the new project that you're going to set up. You can set the project key, you can set the project tempo, you can set the project time signature. All those things are important when creating and wanting to record your song. But what I want to have you look at specifically is down here, the output and the input devices. This will be the device that you have hooked up to your computer, whether that's a USB microphone, whether you're going to be using the built-in microphone on your laptop or your computer, whether you're going to use your audio interface that you've selected. But this will determine what is getting recorded into GarageBand and also how you're going to listen to what you've recorded. That's the output section. So you'll want to set that before you get started so that it saves yourself a lot of headache later on. So once you've got that set, you can go ahead and double click on the project that you want to get started with. So here is our empty project. Now when it first opens up, it's going to ask you what type of track you want to create, because there's no use in having a project without some tracks to record. So you can do a software instrument or a virtual instrument. This is a track that's controlled by a USB keyboard, an input device, a drum pad or something like that, to trigger sounds that are generated by a software instrument. These instruments are made to sound like pianos, synths, guitars, basses, drums. Really pretty cool, and GarageBand actually comes with a really good suite of sounds. You can also do a microphone. If you want to mic up an acoustic guitar, you do a vocal. You can do a guitar, which plugging your electric guitar in with your guitar cable, it has an awesome set of amp simulators that actually sound pretty good. And you can also do a drummer track, but we'll talk more about each of these later. But for now, we're just going to open up a software instrument track. Okay, now here we go. There might be there's a lot of stuff going on the screen, but I'm going to walk you through it. So let's get started first with everything across this top section here. Over here you have a couple of buttons that will open up different windows and menus that will help you in selecting your sounds and mixing your sounds and getting them all ready to go. Starting with the first one here is the library. And if I toggle that on and off, you'll see it's this section over here. We're going to talk about that a little bit more. It also has a quick start guide. You can click this and it'll give you a quick description of each of the buttons. This is really helpful when you're first getting started so that you don't have to remember what these buttons do. You can just click on this and it'll help you remember. You also have the quick controls window, we'll talk about more, and the edit window, which we can talk about more too. Moving on over here, you have your transport controls. These are the controls that affect playback and recording in GarageBand. You have your rewind button, your fast forward button, your stop, your play, your record button, and your cycle button. This is also a loop button that can loop a certain section of your song, which can be helpful if you want to record different parts over and over again. It's a super cool feature. And over here is our time and beat display. This is set up now to show beats, bars, tempo, meter, and key. But you can also change it to a couple of other things. If you click on this little triangle or arrow here, you can have it display beats and time, just beats, just time. But I like to have beats and project. Right here is a tuning button. If you have a guitar plugged in, you can click this and it'll open up a tuner you can use to tune your instrument. Super helpful. Right here is the count-in button and the metronome button. The metronome will have an audible click or a sound that keeps the tempo so that you can have something to listen to as you're recording, making sure that your recordings are in tempo and in time. This is great because that sounds better, but also it's easier to edit and build upon arrangements when it's recorded to a click track. The count-in button affects playback when you are recording. So let's say you set your playhead here, or your cursor here at bar 7, and that's where you want to start recording. If the count-in button is on, playback will actually start one measure before, so you can kind of hear what's happening before it actually starts recording on measure 7. Really helpful. I always have count-in enabled just because it helps get a little bit of context. You don't have to start cold or unaware of what's happening. Over here you have the master volume slider or fader. This displays the master output volume of your whole project. And over here you have access to a notepad, the Apple Loops library, which is really cool. GarageBand comes with a lot of great sounds from the Apple Loop library that you can use in conjunction with your projects. I've used plenty of Apple Loops in a lot of my projects, so they're super helpful and useful. And then you also have the media browser here, which lets you import files from your computer and other sources like iTunes and iMovie and things like that. Okay, moving on to what you see here. This is the project window. This is where all the tracks that you have recorded will be displayed. They're displayed in lines from left to right. Just like you would read music on a piece of paper, it starts at the left and progresses to the right. And over here is your tracks list or your tracks window. This will show you all the different tracks that you have that you're going to be recording or that you're mixing. You can have keyboards, microphones, drums, all sorts of things here that you'll be working with. And the track header, which is this section here, has a couple of quick controls. It has a mute button here, which will stop playback of the track. You also have a solo button, which means that this is the only track that will play during playback. It's super useful if you're trying to hone in or zero in on a particular sound and what you want to do. You'll have access to the volume slider here, and here is the pan knob. Panning is the ability to place your sound either in the center or in the right ear or the left ear or somewhere in between. Super helpful when mixing. Over here we have the library window. Now this is contextual, meaning it will change depending on what type of track you have selected. Because I have a software instrument selected, it gives me access to all the different software instruments or sounds that I could assign or have when I'm using a software instrument in GarageBand. You can do guitars, basses, drums, keyboards, all sorts of things. You can search the different categories here, find the sound you want, or you can actually search for a particular sound too by typing in something in the search bar. Really helpful. Down here, we have either the quick controls window or the edit window. Right now we see the quick controls window. In this section over here, you have access to the different effects or things that are taking place on your track. So this allows you to adjust the keyboard sensitivity, which you might want to do depending on your keyboard, your USB keyboard. But if you click this button here, you have access to plugins. You can add EQs or compressors or other cool distortions or things like that to your sound. And you also have access to the master echo, which is a delay, or the master reverb, which is the sound of being in like a big hall or a big chamber. Really pretty cool quick controls. You also have access to the master section, which is something that affects the whole mix. It affects every single track in your project. It all gets bussed together and goes through this master channel. Over here, you can, on the quick control section, you can adjust the controls of the synthesizer that you have. This allows you to change the way that the sound comes out, and you can do some really cool things here. You can also that also gives you access to an EQ, and also you can have access to the effects as well. Really pretty cool. GarageBand and Logic does this too, but it creates a graphical interface that actually looks like hardware or gear that exists in the real world. So it's pretty familiar. Just knobs you can turn and affect the sound in different ways. Really, really helpful. The other window that can be displayed down here is the edit window, and you can actually access that by pressing the E key or by clicking the edit window up here. Now this will depend on what type of track you have selected in the tracks window here. This is actually displaying MIDI information or MIDI data, which is data, electronic data that's recorded that you can manipulate and edit to make different notes play. You can edit the length that the note plays, how loud the note plays. And as you can see, you have your piano roll here. The notes are displayed there. And you can adjust some other things with that MIDI information over there too. If you have an audio track, like a vocal track or something that you've recorded audio with a microphone, you'll see a different window here where you can edit and slice the waveform that you've recorded and do other cool things with it like that. And that is everything you need to know to get started with GarageBand. We're going to go over more in detail recording different tracks, creating new tracks, mixing the tracks, and outputting those tracks to release a really cool song. So if you're interested in learning how to use GarageBand and get the most out of it, definitely subscribe to the channel, give this video a like, leave a comment in the comment section below letting me know what specifically you would like to learn when using GarageBand, and I will do my best to get you covered and make sure that you feel comfortable and ready to rock and roll in GarageBand. Until next time, guys, I'm Jeff. This is Ignite Music Project, and I hope you've enjoyed the video. Till next time, see ya.